Civil War, 9 is Civil War, and they didn't care about any of that at all. And as soon as we had to reconstruct it, they were kind of back on board, and they really did well on that standard. So I want to keep going with this, doing what I did last quarter. Maybe clean it up in a couple areas, focus more on some of these standards that didn't go as well. But I think it's going to be really, really, really big. And it's going to help Part B, because when we look at Part B, my Part B class in just a second, you'll see that obviously the milestone scores are not where we need them to be yet. But I think doing it this way will help. And these students that took Part B with me this quarter, obviously they did not do Part A in this new style that I'm doing. So I want to see how the milestone looks for them after that. And speaking of that, if we turn to the strengths and weaknesses, well, we can look at the data first, and you see that the milestone scores were not dreadful. Lots of 60s, low 70s. I think the highest score in either class was like a 73 or a 74. But nothing really, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of terrible. I think only one student scored below 50. So even in those classes, we had a 60% gap closure. And then the fourth period only had a 25%, but I had some students that did really well on their pre-test, and they did not do as well. My Vision Paul got an 84 on her pre-test, and then only got a 68 on the milestone. So that's one student that's minus 143%. But anyway, on the strengths and weaknesses for that, the biggest weaknesses were clearly the Part A section on the milestone as far as that test goes. When you look at the printout and it shows how they did, you know, every student that took Part B fell into you know, a remediating learner still on the Part A content. So we had some students that were still developing or whatever in Part B that were clearly, you know, the material was a little fresher. Nobody scored above remediated learning on Part A. So that's, you know, and then we're already addressing that with the ILT and all that, but that's clearly like what I'll have to focus on next quarter is making sure I leave enough time to really go back over that Part A stuff, not try to just review it in 1 day or 2 days like I did this time. As far as the individual standards that the students took, there's nothing really unique here that's any different on any other quarter. The biggest weakness is anything to do with communism. They do not understand communism. They don't even want to know about it. And Standard 16 and Standard 20 both deal with it's the Red Scare and the Cold War, and they really struggle with that for some reason. So I'll put more focus on that. But other than that, like, I'm really optimistic about. I think that the way that I did things, as I continue to build on it, it will get better and better. And I think these students that took Part A that move on to Part B, I think we'll see some big improvements. So.
What do you think we can do besides ILT?
I don't know. I mean, the tutoring, I guess, like you said, it's so tough because, especially sometimes they don't go straight from Part A to Part B with us. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they may have taken Part A, you know, 2 years ago or whatever. Mm-hmm. The other problem is sometimes they get put in the wrong order. Mm-hmm. So now that doesn't directly apply to Part A, but we had a couple of students that took Part B before they took Part A. Mm-hmm. So, and that shouldn't happen, I know, but you know, sometimes it ends up being like that.
Can we do a data dig on the actual students when we get the rosters to kind of get an overview of the students that have taken Part A, or when was the last time they took Part A, and really kind of have you know what I'm saying, look at what our class consists of, and then develop an individualized instructional plan for those students, and basically say, hey, you know, you took Part A 2 years ago at Langston,
right?
So you're not familiar with this material. I'm going to need for you to. These are some things I need you to be, you know, refresher on, and kind of customize a plan for those students that have fallen into that category.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We just have to, you know, you can pull up all their stuff online, so we can look back at that and figure that out. And maybe I know the math and reading is priority, but maybe we can also look at as far as who definitely, you know, needs to be in that ILT for social studies, if they're available students that haven't taken U.S. History Part A in a while. So, I mean, this group that I had this quarter in Part A, them coming forward into Part B, those that do, I feel great about that. Okay. But yeah, you know, I could have a bunch of new students this time that haven't had it before. So, but I'm excited about it. I think we're going like that.
Would
So-
you refresh our memory now on your new style?
Sure. So what I do is I give them, I give them a packet, but it's not like the old packets where they had to do everything in the packet. For each element or whatever, they get an assignment choice. Now what they do have to do that's mandatory is they have to do a complete vocabulary assignment and a discussion, and discussion questions. So in the packet, I'll do them like my PowerPoint presentation like I normally do, and then when they get their packet, it'll have a summary, which I just get from the Georgia Standards webpage. And then after that, there'll be discussion questions that pertain to the summary and the PowerPoint. Then they have to do the vocabulary. And then after that, they have to pick, it's different for each standard, how many assignments they have to choose from out of those. And then they're also rotating now. Every 15 minutes, I did that. So, in one section they work on the discussion questions, the next section they work on the vocabulary, and then, different sections for all the different things. And every 2 rotations we stop and we have a class discussion. So there's not, it's hard for them to doze off or go, because they're constantly moving and doing different stuff. So I think it's working. So it's getting better and better.
Can you discuss your assessment style? You were saying you were doing some type of rolling assessments.
Sure. Like I made all my assessments off the milestone page and off GoFar, and so the first one they'll have 5 questions just on standard 1. The next one it'll grow to 10, and it'll be standards 1 and 2. The next one will be 15. Every standard we do, they add on 5, but the questions have to change, because if you just do the same ones, then eventually they'll just figure out what the answers are. So that's kind of the intensive part of it, is you're constantly having to make new questions, but that's how it builds, and by the end it's a full-on test, right? And it's almost then it almost serves as like a practice test.
milestone.
Right? So and that's just kind of how that works. So.
Thank you. So I have